Hi math students, this is our introduction video for our lesson on representing situations with systems. This video is going to focus on if you have a story or a situation, how you can write a system of equations to represent. First, some vocabulary. We've already learned that a system of equations means two equations with the same solutions that represent one situation. The main idea here is if you are asked to write a system, that means you should be writing two equations. One of the words we're going to talk a lot about in this video is constraint. Constraint is the restrictions or limitations described in a situation. You can think of it like the information given in the story. For example, if I tell you Bob makes $15 an hour, that's a limitation. He does not make more than that. He does not make less than that. With systems, it's important to identify that there will be two different constraints, two different groups of information, and we can use that to help us write our equations. For example, we have the story about Elsa. Elsa spends $40 buying 15 pieces of fruit at the grocery store. Apples cost $2 each, and pineapples cost $3 each. Write a system of equations, remember that means two equations, to represent the constraints of this story. The first thing I'm going to do, because there's a lot of information here, is identify my two constraints, identify my two groups of information. As I read through the information in this story, one of the things I notice is one constraint is money or cost. We know she spends $40, we know apples cost $2 each, and we know pineapples cost $3 each. That's going to be one group of information. One of my equations is going to be describing our cost. Our other equation in this story is going to represent our constraint of how much fruit she gets. We're told she buys a total of 15 pieces of fruit. And the two fruits she's buying apples and she's buying pineapples. And so together, there's a total of 15 pieces of fruit. There's 15 apples and pineapples together. So my other equation is going to be describing, we'll say, number of fruit. And that helps me identify which information goes in each equation. For our cost equation, I might say if apples cost $2 each, we could say $2 for each apple, plus our $3 for each pineapple, and she's spending a total of $40. I've used two variables, so let me stop and describe those. I know the cost of each apple, but I don't know how many apples. So A could be number of apples, and then P is real similar. P would be the number of pineapples. And there's one of my equations. I have now used $40, $2, $3. I am done with that information. It's not going to be in my next equation. My other equation is the number of fruit. We know she's getting a total of 15 pieces of fruit. Sometimes I see students start by saying, I know there's a total of 15. When we say a total of 15 pieces of fruit, we mean if you combine the apples and pineapples together, there's 15 there. We already said A is the number of apples and P is the number of pineapples. If we have 15 pieces of fruit, it means if you add the number of apples plus the number of pineapples, there is a total of 15. There's no multiplication there. I'm just adding my apples and pineapples together. This right here would be our system of equations. The next thing we could do, of course, is solve this by graphing or some other ways we're going to learn in the future. The focus today, though, is just on writing this system of equations. I have one for you to try below. My advice is start the same way we did. Start by identifying your two constraints or your two groups of information, and that will help you get your equations. Here is your story. Pause the video here to try, and then come back to see how you did. So our two groups of information in this story are going to be Margarita and Valentine. I know for Margarita that she is starting with $40 and that she saves $10 each week. So one of my equations would be about her and her savings. I know she is starting with $40, so I can put $40 down. And she saves $10 each week. And that would be describing maybe the total money in the account. The other group of information I have is Valentine. We've got Valentine starts with $20 and she saves $20 each week. So for my other equation, that's going to be describing Valentine. She is starting with $20 and she is adding $20 each week to get her total amount of money. Our variables here, W, we could say represents the number of weeks, and T represents maybe total saved, something like that. I think representing systems of equations with two equations can be a little harder because in the story, the information might be mixed together, like this right here, where we have Margarita and Valentine's information all mixed and combined, which is why I think starting by identifying what your two equations are going to describe is a really good point. In today's lesson, we are going to be practicing doing more of this, and you are ready for today's lesson. Thanks so much for watching.